Let's talk about the Pune Porsche case. It's a story that starts with a horrific late-night crash, but then it spirals into this massive national scandal. And what's really fascinating is that it ended up putting not just one wealthy family, but the entire Indian justice system on trial.
And this, right here, is what blew the whole thing wide open. On the one hand, you have an absolutely devastating crime, 2 people killed by a supercar going at an insane speed. And on the other, you have the initial punishment, an essay. This contrast, this complete disconnect, is really the key to understanding the firestorm that came next.
All right, so let's start at the very beginning. The story kicks off in the early hours of May 19, 2024. This is where 2 worlds collided in the most tragic way imaginable. So, picture this. You've got Anisa Wadia and Ashwini Kashta, a couple of young software engineers, just heading home on their motorcycle. And then, coming the other way, is a 17-year-old, just shy of his 18th birthday, driving a Porsche Taycan that wasn't even registered. He'd been drinking, and police say he was flying down the road at about 160 kilometers an hour when he crashed right into them. They were killed instantly.
Now, here's what's truly staggering. You'd think a tragedy like that would lead to a serious, deliberate legal process, right? Nope. Just 15 hours later, 15 hours after 2 people died, the teen was granted bail by the Juvenile Justice Board.
And the conditions for his bail, you're not going to believe this. He was told to write a 300-word essay about road accidents, do a little community service, and get some counseling. Yeah, you heard that right, an essay. To the public, this felt like a complete and utter mockery of justice.
The reaction was just immediate and explosive. People were furious. This essay bail became this huge national symbol of what many saw as a 2-tier justice system, one for the rich and a totally different one for everybody else. The public pressure was so intense that it actually forced the police to fight the decision, and eventually the bail was revoked.
But here's the thing, the story was far from over. With the whole nation now watching, the miner's family allegedly kicked off this incredibly brazen, multi-part plan to basically obstruct justice and make all the evidence just disappear.
Their alleged game plan was pretty sophisticated, really. It wasn't just one thing. It was this coordinated, 3-pronged attack on the investigation, trying to sabotage it from every possible angle.
So, step 1 started right at the police station. The crash happened around 2:30 in the morning, but the teen's blood sample wasn't taken until 11 a.m. That's a critical 8-hour gap. And as we all know, alcohol fades from your system over time. This delay was the first crucial step in tampering with the evidence, and it created the perfect opportunity for the next part of the conspiracy.
And that brings us to part 2 of the plot, which goes down at Sassoon General Hospital. This part involves a twist that is just, well, it's shocking. The miner's own mother allegedly got directly involved.
So, how did this alleged blood swap work? Well, according to the police, the whole thing was masterminded by the head of forensics there, a Dr. Ajay Taware. A bribe of 3 lakh rupees was supposedly paid. Another doctor collected the teen's actual blood sample and then just tossed it in a dustbin. In its place, they swapped in a clean sample, one that was provided by his mother. But they weren't just messing with blood samples. At the exact same time, there was a whole other plot going on. The teen's father and grandfather were allegedly working on a plan B, create a scapegoat. They reportedly confined their family driver, took his phone, and pressured him to confess that he was the one driving the Porsche. It was a backup, just in case the blood swap didn't work.
But here's the thing about a cover-up this complex. With so many people and so many moving parts, something is bound to go wrong. And with the entire country watching, the police started pulling on every loose thread they could find.
And this is the moment it all came crashing down. The smoking gun. Because the police were already suspicious about that 8-hour delay, they had smartly taken a second blood sample at a completely different hospital, just in case. And when the DNA results came back, bingo. The first sample from Sassoon Hospital, the DNA didn't match the father's. The second sample, a perfect match. The swap was busted, wide open.
As the investigation dug deeper, something really telling came out about the doctor who allegedly masterminded the swap, Dr. Tawar. Turns out, this wasn't his first scandal. He'd actually been removed from his post before over a completely different case, only to be put back in charge later. So what does that suggest? It suggests the family didn't have to create a corrupt system from scratch. They just had to tap into one that was apparently already in place.
Okay, so with the cover-up completely exposed, the whole battle shifts back to the courtroom.
And it all comes down to one huge central legal question. Could this teenager, who was almost 18, be tried as an adult?
The prosecution's entire case hinged on being able to classify the crime as a heinous offense. Under India's Juvenile Justice Act, that's the key. It's the legal gateway that allows the system to treat a 16 or 17-year-old like an adult for a serious crime.
But, and this is a really big but, there's a catch. The defense lawyers found a Supreme Court ruling that defined heinous in a very, very specific and technical way. A crime only counts as heinous if the law says there's a minimum sentence of 7 years or more. It's not about how bad the crime feels, it's about what the law says on paper.
And that legal technicality changed everything. The charge against the teen was culpable homicide not amounting to murder. Now that charge can get you a long time in prison, up to life even. But critically, it has no minimum sentence. And because of that one detail, it didn't fit the strict legal definition. The juvenile board's hands were tied, and they had to reject the police's request to try him as an adult.
So after all the twists and turns, where did everything land? Well, this is where we get to the central and maybe the most stunning irony of this entire saga. Take a look at this scorecard. As of late 2025, the person who is actually behind the wheel of the Porsche is free. Meanwhile, almost every single adult who allegedly tried to protect him, his father, the doctors, the police officers, even the board members who gave him the SA bail, they've all faced severe consequences. Their careers, their freedom, it's incredible. The cover-up ended up being a much bigger trap than the crime itself.
And that's really the heart of it. This case quickly became so much bigger than just one teenager's actions. It ended up putting the very institutions we rely on for justice under a national microscope.
I mean, think about the breakdown at every single level. You had a judicial failure with that baffling bail order. You had a police failure in those critical first hours. And you had a medical failure, where a hospital's forensic unit was allegedly for sale. For so many people watching, this just confirmed their worst fears, that there's a system of impunity for the rich and powerful.
And that leaves us with this final, really important question. The Pune Porsche case is, without a doubt, a grim story about corruption and influence. But you know what? It's also a powerful testament to what can happen when the public and the media get engaged, get angry, and refuse to look away. It makes you wonder, when the system is this flawed, is that kind of intense, sustained public pressure the only real guarantee of justice we have?